Welcome to another brand new episode of Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez. And our special guest for today's episode is director Loren Goldfarb. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
That is.
Okay. And he directed the upcoming documentary feature 96 Pounds of Dynamite. And it's great to see you, Loren.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, thank you. And before we get started, I find the documentary to be pretty interesting, and I liked your subject of the film, Chad McDaniel. I thought his story was I thought his story was pretty powerful, and what he had to go through, and also the film also felt somewhat educational, learning about his disability, learning about the challenges, and also learning about that he's independent. So I want to thank you for that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think Chad's a remarkable person, and
Mm.
I think you can take a lot away from his story.
Yeah. So now that we've gotten into this, so now let's start with the first question, which is, how did you come across your subject, Chad McDaniel, and what was the approach of how you wanted to make his story really interesting?
Yeah, so I think this is one of those questions that always comes up with documentary film. Like, how did that subject hit you? Like, how did you come across this person or that story? So in my case, I had been looking for a project for sort of the prior 3 or 4 years. I'd been keeping a list in my phone. Anytime I'd read something or see something, I'd make a note. Um, I've been in production work for more than 30 years, and the last close to 20 years, I've run a digital media business that has sort of taken me away from storytelling and kind of my passion. And then as my kids went on their own, college and then the workforce, I decided that it was the right time to try to get back into storytelling. And so that's when I started curating this list. And then it just serendipity. I happened to bump into Chad at a pool hall. I'm an amateur pool player.
Mm,
Chad and I live about a half hour apart, but we play at different pool halls. We're in the
mm,
same league.
mm,
And I had seen him at like regional tournaments, but it always fascinated me. Like I'd never seen him play.
mm.
And the question would always come up in my mind, well, how is this guy able to play pool? Like, I don't understand. I'm 6'4". I can drape across the table to get to the object ball and the cue ball. And how does this guy who's in this chair and forced to play by the railing for every shot, how is he able to play this game? And then I had an opportunity to see him play at a tournament, and I was really impressed by what I saw. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, he was the match that I watched him play, he was playing an able-bodied gentleman and same skill level. We have a handicap system in our league. They're the same skill levels, very much like golf, handicap system in golf. And I couldn't believe how much better he was. At least that match that day, he was a lot better than his opponent, and I was very impressed by that. And that sort of led to a mutual friend introducing us, and it went from there.
No, yeah, that's really remarkable. And those scenes where he was showing his great shots, like having all the billiard balls going into the pockets of the pool table. Do you know when those were shot? Was it like on a single day or was it like separately?
We shot over a period of a few months.
Mm,
Some of that stuff is intercut, but a lot of it is from an individual day.
mm,
Um, yeah, so a lot of the artistically shot stuff. So not the shooting you're seeing at a tournament, but the artistically shot material. That was all done, basically over a couple of days.
mm. Because I thought he really looked amazing with the bridge that he has connected to his pool cue. I thought that was pretty cool that he got to show it, and he also was able to talk about, different types of shots he wanted to go for. Now, regarding this, were you able to get permission from not only Chad but also his family to be interviewed in the documentary as well?
Yeah, I mean, access is the probably the single hardest thing for any documentary filmmaker is getting access to your subjects. I mean, unlike a narrative project where you're paying people and that's their job, and they want to be in your project. With documentaries, you have a lot of convincing to do. And fortunately, in this case, everyone you see in the film, they've agreed to be in it. That's why you see them in there. And without that kind of access, it's hard to create the project.
It is. And I also like that the you were able to get like photos and a little bit of were you also did you have to convince Chad to get permission to use like his home movies to show like when he was younger or like his photos just to show like what his life was like when he was younger and also the challenges he had to overcome?
The great thing about Chad is that he's an open book.
Hmm.
He's not a very guarded person.
Hmm.
He kind of wears his emotions on his sleeve, and he is open and very transparent. So once he bought into the project, he was in 100%. So
Wow.
yeah, he was. In fact, he was very helpful in getting material from other people and material he didn't have, but we needed, and he was able to get that material from other folks.
Yeah, it was really remarkable that he was able to show this. Now, regarding that, what about his mother in this case? Where did she live when I was watching this documentary? Because she looked like she might have come from Mississippi, or where was that shot?
So all of that material with his mom was shot in Mississippi,
Hmm.
at her home there. Yep, it
No,
was all in Mississippi. Yeah, she lived there her whole life. Yep.
yeah. And it's really remarkable that even though she was talking about the stubbornness that he ended up getting from her, uh, were were you able to also convince that were you also being willing to let her, say whatever she needed to say about not just herself, but also about uh, the hurdles that she and her son had to face as well?
Yeah, and that was a big part of why we interviewed her. Like we wanted to hear about that, about the backstory, because that's a big part of the film is what Chad endured as a young man growing up in rural Mississippi. And so her perspective on that was very important. And she, like Chad, very open, transparent. There's no sugarcoating. What you see is what you get, which is great. As a filmmaker, that's what you want. You don't want people to be really guarded and reserved about how they're feeling.
Yeah, and I could definitely see that not just in Chad, but also from his mother in the documentary, which I thought was pretty badass, to be honest. They felt like badasses when I watched them. Just be straight, be honest, and just say what they needed to say. And and in the documentary, he didn't mind being called a midget.
No, I mean that's incredible, right? I mean, his nickname is Shorty, which
Mm.
he embraces that nickname wholeheartedly. And midget, he calls himself a midget.
Mm.
His attitude is that what you see is what you get.
Hmm.
I am short in stature. I can't get around that. I'm going to lean into it instead of trying to force everyone to tiptoe around the issue.
Hmm.
Let's put everyone's guard down. Let's open things up so that no one feels uncomfortable around me. He does not want, he uses humor, I think, as a way to disarm and to make people feel more comfortable
Mm.
around him and see him as a person, and not as someone to be pitied or what have you, because he certainly doesn't want that.
Yeah.
And nor, I've gotten to know him really well. And, um, I don't, some people are going to quibble with this, but I don't see the disability. I mean, yes, he's disabled. I know he's disabled. He needs help with certain things. If he can't reach up to a tall cabinet and pick out something from the cabinet, he can't do that. I mean,
Hmm.
right? I can do that. He can't do that. But you know, there are a lot of things that I can't do that he can do,
Hmm.
and I don't necessarily see the disability anymore. I see my friend Chad, who happens to have a disability, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's what he wants. I think if you were to ask him I think that that's what he would say he wants other people to feel, like that he's just their friend, and he might need help with certain things, just like his friends might need help with certain things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also wanted to talk about his wife in the movie. I thought she
Mm.
also was a very loving person, and was she also like was she also like very open about besides like what Chad was doing? Like she was not that protective, or was she a little bit hesitant at first?
No, she really wasn't. I mean, she's as much of an open book as he is.
Oh.
Yeah, they're very outgoing, social people who love to talk and and have fun, and they're not guarded. Neither one of them is guarded.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's really nice. So now that we've gotten into that, I know you mentioned the challenges of making a documentary, which were you have to gain access. Were there any other like production challenges or any other challenges that you hoped you wanted to do, but maybe you got what you wanted, or was everything just as smooth as you wanted it to be?
There are always challenges that come up in a documentary that are unique to this art form or this genre,
Hmm.
because you don't know how things are going to unfold. So, unlike a narrative project where it's scripted ahead of time, and you go into the field, you shoot scenes or studio wherever you're shooting. Everything is very staged. It's very set ahead of time, and all the work is in the pre-production, right, and
Hmm.
planning all that out. Documentary work, that it can be like that depending on the kind of documentary. So if you're doing something that's purely historical, you're looking back at the Kennedy assassination or some event in World War II. It happened, it's over, we know it's done, and all the pre-production is where all the work is, and gathering the information, finding the experts, pre-interviewing them. You know what these people are going to say when you go and conduct the interview. But when you are doing what I would call, what some people call a fly on the wall documentary, or in the moment, where you are following events as they happen, which is what I like to do, it also adds a lot of unpredictability. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen, right? So when we embarked on the project, there are things we don't want to give too much away now, of course, but there are things that happen in Chad's life during the course of shooting that we could never have predicted walking into that project, right? There are things that go on that we had no idea were going to go on, and they end up being very big parts of the film. And
Hmm.
but we didn't know going in that these were going to happen, and you have to be willing to sort of adjust and pivot. You go in with an idea. Here's our treatment. This is what we think is going to happen. But then as you start shooting, circumstances change, and you have to be willing to adapt. In our case, nothing happened that threw us off completely and forced us to rethink the whole concept of a film for this project, or nothing like that happened. But there are always little challenges. You're trying to get access to certain things, and you're finding it difficult. You have to wait a long time to get permission. You can't just walk in anywhere you want with a camera. You have to have permission to go into places, depending on where it is. Certainly if it's a privately owned location. So, you're always kind of like biting your nails. You're making all these plans, and yet you don't have final approval to shoot somewhere. And yet you spent the money on airfare. You've hired your crew and the whole bit, and you don't know whether you're going to be able to actually go and do it. But fortunately, it all worked out, and there were no real big hurdles that came up unexpectedly.
Yeah, it that's one thing that I will know. What about I there was a portion of the documentary that I just felt like I did not know about this, but it felt really personal to me because I, as a person with a disability, had gone to a school with other kids with learning and physical disabilities as well. The Columbia Primary School in Mississippi, was that building where it was filmed? Did it go through major renovations or changes, or did it pretty much remain the same as I was watching this documentary?
And now a message from Jordan Ramirez for Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez.
I want to take a break from this episode to thank my listeners slash viewers who watch the videos on my YouTube channel and listen to each new episode on Spotify. While this show is a labor of love and passion that isn't about the movies that I like, this is also a show that is about the films that you like. Have a film that you want to recommend to the podcast? Make sure to recommend it in the comments section on YouTube and on Spotify, and you will receive a shout out in a future episode. Want to be a guest on the podcast? Click on the sign up form link in the episode description for further details. If you like this episode or my previous episodes, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more interviews in the near future. The goal for this channel is to reach up to 100 subscribers both on YouTube and on Spotify. It's just that easy. And now, back to our regularly scheduled episode.
So the Columbia Primary School, where Chad, it's an elementary school basically. That was a building that was single story. When I was there and we were shooting, it appeared to be handicap accessible. The biggest challenge for Chad was when it came to accessibility was in high school, where it was a two-story building. That has changed dramatically, as you see in the film. There is now accessibility for people who are in wheelchairs. His big challenge when he was in elementary school, and we talk about this in the film, there were two big challenges. One was that back then, there was no requirement at the federal level requiring schools to provide equal access to education in a way that would allow Chad to be in a classroom with his peers. He was in a classroom that was for children who had both mental and physical disabilities. He actually was the only one with a physical disability. The rest of them had mental health challenges, and he wasn't getting the education that he needed. He was more advanced, and he required more advanced teaching. And so they had that battle in their hands, and then they had a battle with his wheelchair. He did not have a motorized wheelchair until I think it was the second grade, or actually very beginning of third grade, as I recall. And the school didn't want him using his electric wheelchair in the school. And he had gone through all this effort to raise the money because his family was relatively poor and the chair was expensive. They went around town, raised money, and the town was very generous. And he was able to buy this chair, but he wasn't allowed to use it. The school wanted to keep him from using it. And there was a big fight over this in Mississippi. It got a lot of coverage in the state. And we talk about that in the film.
It is, which I thought was a pretty remarkable thing to not only put in his story, but also like the educational and informational aspect, which I thought it felt like not only was I getting to know who Chad is, but also I was learning about what the challenges for people with disabilities, what they had to go through during this period, which I thought that's pretty remarkable in that time span. But I also liked that there was like footage of him going inside. I think it was the high school or the middle school. I cannot tell which one it was. And the outside of when he had to be, did he mention like he had somebody, like two people, they had to help him get up the stairs when he was going to what was previously the pool club, or what was going on there?
Yeah, so there's a building in town in Columbia. It's still there. We shot at the building. You see us there, but it's no longer used for this purpose. But back then, there was like a teen club or a game room on the second floor, and it didn't have an elevator or a way for Chad to get up there in his wheelchair. So his friends would lift him out of the chair and then carry him up the flight of steps into the game room.
Yeah, pretty much as what I saw in the movie. Now, I know we can't reveal too much information, but I will give a little bit of a preview. So when he is competing to go to the Vegas tournament, I think it was, for the amateur pool, I think it was like the APA. Was he like thinking that he was gonna make it, or what was on his mind when you got to interview him about whether or not he was gonna make it to Vegas? I know he mentioned that he's been there before, but what about the time when you were filming him during this upcoming tournament?
Yeah, so he had won this tournament. in Orlando. He and I both live in Brevard County, Florida, which is about an hour east of Orlando. And we were both in this tournament in Orlando, and he qualified to go to Vegas at that tournament. He won 6 out of 7 matches, and he qualified to go to Vegas. And I had also qualified, and so we both, I think anyone who gets a qualification, they think that they have a real shot at winning and going all the way. I mean, if you make it that far, because you have 2 rounds, you have a local round you have to win, then you go to regionals, which is where we were in Orlando, and then you go to Vegas. So it's a pretty intense process. It's not easy to get a ticket to Vegas,
Hmm.
and I think anyone who does it has a real shot, at going all the way and winning, or at least getting to the final table. So he went in with the attitude that, yeah, I mean, I could do this. I have every intent on winning and going all the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the other question I want to ask is about his stepfather, which I don't want to reveal too much about what happens. But he mentioned that when his mother remarried to his stepfather, he said that he and his stepfather were very close,
Mhm.
and and I know that I can't give too much away. But let's just say he something bad happened with him, and was he that? Uh, I know you mentioned he was an open book, and he would like to show the access that he gave you. Did he like to talk about his stepfather that either did make it in the movie or did not make it in the film because you were going through the footage?
I mean, he was. There is one element where Chad I wouldn't say shut down, but where he kind of put up his hand and said, "No, this is too far. I can't go this far." And it relates to his stepfather. I can't really go say more than that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's in the film and people can see it there. Um, but he loved the love that he has for his stepfather is pretty strong. And it's interesting. Chad and I, on the surface, you'd think that beyond pool, he and I have nothing in common, but we had similar upbringings.
Mm.
He grew up poor. I grew up relatively poor in an affluent community. I was the odd duck in an affluent community. Um, he had his stepfather during Chad's younger years was formative, and my stepfather played a very big role in my life.
Mm.
My mother's a very strong-willed person, and she helped me become the person I am. Same thing, Chad will tell you the same thing. So there are a lot of similarities between the two of us that, as I said, are not obvious on the surface, and it's probably one reason why he and I have become such good friends. I mean, we
Mm.
talk, I'd say, if not every day, every other day.
Mm-hmm.
We keep in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that one I thought was something I wanted to touch on, which was important, but as we both said, we can't reveal too much of the movie because it would be giving it away. But I did like that when he did go to college, that he did get a computer engineering degree, which I thought was pretty
Mhm.
interesting. And what was the name of the business that he was part of? That is mentioned in a documentary that I might have missed.
So I'm not going to bring that up, and we didn't mention it in the film.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's I'd say not his he had a very long career there. He did really well.
Mm-hmm.
But toward the end, he was disenchanted with some things that went on, and so we decided not to reveal the name of the company. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very well-known uh, defense contractor, and everyone
Mm.
would know the name. But I'm not going to reveal it out of respect for Chad's wishes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But it's great that not only was he, interested in that position and he later became, as you say, disenchanted, but also that I liked his little office that you were able to show in the documentary that he was able to, showcase. But yeah, I thought it was pretty unique that you got to do that. The other thing I wanted to mention were like, besides the relationship with his stepfather. I like the relationship between him and his wife, which I thought was really beautiful to capture on the film.
Mhm.
And uh, we won't give too much away, but Um, it was said he said in the documentary that they met in Orlando and that they got to know each other and that later they became did they get married in Vegas? That was the part I felt a little bit confused by when
Sure.
I yeah.
No, they got married in Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, they actually, she's from California. They
Mm,
met online. The OI, they're the condition that they both have, osteogenesis imperfecta, has a really strong online community. And they talk back and forth, share stories, issues, problems, suggestions. And they met on an online forum through mutual friends they had in this community and who kind of put them together. They started a long distance friendship, and then they met in person. The OI Foundation, which is the organization, it's kind of the umbrella organization that represents this world. They have a conference every 2 years, and sometimes they have it in Orlando. And so um, they made arrangements to meet there. So she flew in. He drove, he was driven over there, and they were at the conference for whatever it was, a few days, and they met there at the conference. That was their first time meeting in person.
hmm And and I know that in the documentary, I think somebody asked him about his active sex life, and I thought his response in the documentary was pretty funny, and I just find that to I as you mentioned, he had a great sense of humor. He had, no qualms about, just, being pitied or anything like that. But I thought, was he really that, animated or energetic when you got to interview him, when he gave you the best responses that you wanted to put in this documentary?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I've been in this in business of interviewing people and for 30 years, and rarely do you have someone who is as compelling on camera as Chad is. But
Hmm
that is the way he is in real. I mean, that's the way he is. I mean, if you meet him at a pool hall, or you meet him in a restaurant, that's the Chad you're going to see, unless it's really late at night or super early in the morning. That's the Chad you're going to get
Yeah.
during normal business hours. That's the Chad you're going to get. And
Yeah.
yeah, he's just got a great personality. So does Allison. They both just have a great personality. And then when I met with them, I met them at their home in October of 23. This was shortly after we had finally met at a pool hall when we actually got to talk. He and I met maybe a week or two later in his house, and we sat down for like a couple of hours and talked. And um, I knew when I walked out of there that if he agreed to it and said, yeah, he wanted to do it, that we would have a good film, because he was just great. And just in that sit down meeting with no camera, I mean, he was just fantastic. Um, you could take the very same elements, but subtract out the really good personality, and you wouldn't have the film, right? You'd have a magazine article,
Mm-hmm.
but you wouldn't have a film. So the visual medium, audio, video married together, require really compelling characters. And fortunately, we had that here. And Chad is very compelling.
It is. So okay, so what do you think that the people who wanted to see this remarkable documentary, what do you think people will take away from this? Because on one hand, people will say not only is it an inspirational story, but you're also learning about about his disability, about the challenges he overcame. So what would you say is the one thing you would take away that maybe people would understand about this documentary and also about Chad McDaniel?
So I think that the what everyone can take away from it is that no matter what the challenge, whether it's something you were born with, whether it's something that happens to you during the course of your life, overcoming that, a lot of it rests on how you approach it, on your approach to it, not other people's approach, but your approach, your mental place. How are you going to frame it in your mind and bend things to your will? Because that's what he's done. Right. And we can all do that. It doesn't matter what the situation is, whether it's a physical disability or something else that happens in our lives. How are we going to look at that, learn from it, and manipulate our world so that we can survive that situation or thrive because of that situation.
Mhm. Yeah, and I absolutely agree with you on this. And I love that you not only captured his humor in the story and the humanity that is portrayed in this film, but you also managed to make me feel sort of like, as a person with a disability, I feel like I am not the only one who can share a story about what it's like to overcome these challenges, but also that you can become independent, that you can be compelled to do the stories that you want, that one wants to share, but also uh, of how this story can relate to anybody, regardless of whether or not one has a disability mentally or physically, but that we are all human no matter what, which is what I thought is important in this documentary and what I could take away from Chad's life story in this case.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
The other thing is I want to mention, if you don't mind, that I think is really important in today's world. So many documentaries can't get a universal audience because
Mm,
they are viewed through a political lens,
mm,
right? Oh, this feels too right or it feels too left. I'm not going to watch that. It
mhm,
doesn't. I'm not going to agree with it, so I'm not going to watch it.
mhm,
I think, and I didn't set out to do this when we were going to make the film, but as we were completing it, it occurred to me that this is a film, this is a story that everyone can get behind. It doesn't matter what your political leanings are. We don't reveal in the film because there's no place for it. It doesn't matter, what Chad's political leanings are. You don't know what mine are. Um, that's not the point of this film. And it is a film that, it doesn't matter how you're viewing it, what lens you're using. You can get behind Chad. You can root for him. And you can walk away with something meaningful from his story.
yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, I felt nothing that was agenda driven or political driven. It was more humanity driven. It was more
Mhm.
a story that you want to share, but also that he wants to tell as well. That isn't going to be seen as you said, left or right. It was going to be seen as just take the lens off and just view it for what it is and not for what you want to think it is about, which is something that I think the documentary uh, that I watched was about. And as you said, in today's climate, we do see documentaries that either are agenda driven or political driven or have a topic they want to talk about. And sometimes it's hard to view whatever the subject is. But I think that your documentary is, I don't know if it's like one of the few that try to not do it through a political lens, but saying that we're not left or right, but we're just trying to be, reaching to all audiences, regardless of whatever your beliefs are.
Yeah, and as I said, that wasn't our intent, but I think as we were completing it, it became obvious to me that that was the case. And I think the other documentaries are very important. I mean, I think issue-driven films are critical. I mean, we have to have them.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, if something's viewed as being left-leaning or right-leaning, the opposite side doesn't even want to watch it, and that's
Mhm.
very unfortunate. The nice thing about this film, as I said, is just that everyone can watch this without having to inject their own political leanings, and they can walk away with something valuable. Um, and again, it wasn't our intent. I'm glad. I'm glad we were able to do that, but it wasn't our intent.
Mhm.
And I think that people should still watch films that they don't agree with, so that they can open up their mind and maybe learn how other people think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've seen other documentaries that focus on these types of issues, regardless of whatever happens. But I liked the way that you portrayed not only his story, but also the impact of community for people with a disability to understand what they went through. And I know that sometimes whenever I watch documentaries or feature films that often focus on the narrative of a person with a disability, sometimes the characters could be pitied, or they could be viewed as a tragic character, or they could be viewed as this or that, which it does make it hard to relate to that character when you watch those types of stories. But your story and maybe others like this try to sort of demystify it, which is something that I'd
Hmm.
love to see more of. I don't know if any other examples of maybe television programs or documentaries or features that try to demystify the stereotypical view of how we portray people with disabilities, of if anyone can think of that.
Yeah, there's a really good film that came out. What's maybe within the last 12 to 24 months called the Ride Ahead,
Hmm.
which was uh, it's a really terrific film by Dan Habib, and it's about his son Sam, and his son Sam is I forget which condition he has, but he's confined, essentially confined to a wheelchair. It's motorized like Chad's, and he's entering his adulthood from his teen years, and the film is all about his trying to gather information from other folks who are disabled about how to go through that process. And he and his father travel all over the country together. You see all this in the film, and it's really fantastic. For those who haven't seen it, The Ride Ahead, it's a really great film, and it also does a great job of demystifying, and it gets into very complicated and difficult subjects. And there's some, it's a very, very transparent film. Just, no holds barred. We're showing everything.
Hmm.
And I think it did a fantastic job of showing what it's like for this
Mm.
young man who's, entering adulthood.
Okay. Is the Ride Ahead available to view on any streaming platforms or on physical media?
I think it's still. I'm pretty sure it's available on PBS. It had its wide release on PBS, and I'm almost certain if you go to the PBS page, platform on your phone or tablet or maybe on your TV, and you search The Ride Ahead, I think you'll find it.
Yeah, I mean, PBS has done amazing work with
Mm.
documentaries like this, and also on difficult subject matters that I know don't get I try to watch commercial documentaries or features, but sometimes whenever I watch some of those documentaries, they often try to label it or they try to go into those tropes, which kind of somewhat bother me. But I try to
Mhm.
watch like independent features or maybe features or documentaries that demystify it. But after you explaining this The Right Ahead, which I feel like I'm pretty interested in. It made me say, it made me say that that is something that I had never heard of that I feel like I want to give it a try.
Yeah, I would encourage you to watch it. It's a good film.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so do you have any future plans with this documentary once you show it at the different festivals?
Yeah, so we are working on distribution. I'm fairly confident that it'll be available probably late spring, early summer in wide release on major platforms.
Hmm.
So that's TBD or TBA, I guess. And we
Okay.
will we will certainly be letting folks know. The best way to keep up with our film is to go to our website at dynamite-film.com. We have a newsletter you can sign up for. Of course, we're also on social media on Facebook and Instagram, and you can get to those pages by going to our website. There's the standard icons are there, so you can link to our social media pages, and we'll be updating as things happen. We release information. So as soon as we know which platforms we're going to be on and when, we will be announcing that.
Okay. So will Chad be also available to the documentary film festivals, or will he not be able to make it?
So fortunately, he is going to be joining us. I can't. This particular festival hasn't announced their schedule yet, so we're not allowed to say which one it is. But
Okay.
he will be. I will say this: he will be traveling. We are going to be traveling together to the Northeast. It's about as close as I can get to the Northeast at the. I think it's the end of April
Hmm.
for a festival up there. And then right in our backyard, or pretty close to it, the Vero Beach Film Festival, which is about an hour south of where we live. They're going to be having two screenings of our film. He's going to be joining me there. So
Hmm.
he'll be able to go to a couple of the screenings. I really wanted him to go to California to Cinequest, which is our premiere, our world premiere, but that is quite a challenge for him to travel cross
Mm.
country, not being able to use a bathroom. So
Uh,
he can travel to Las Vegas. It's about as far as he can get
mm.
without without any difficulty. But yeah, so that's a little too far for him.
Okay. I hope that he does well in answering the questions at the upcoming festivals, and I hope that people get to know him more thanks to this documentary. And I am glad that I got to know him through this documentary, and I'm glad to know his story, and I'm glad to know. Thank you for offering these wonderful ideas that you have presented for this documentary. So I thank you for that.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and taking an interest in the film.
Yeah, no problem. And I thought it was a really great documentary that will be okay, so for those who are want to know when they can see this documentary, when will it be shown at what festivals and where can they catch up with it?
Sure. So for folks who live in Northern California in the Bay Area, we're going to be premiering at Cinequest this coming week. So our world premiere is on Saturday at Cinequest at the Alamo Cinema Draft House or
Mhm.
Draft House Cinema. I forget. I always switch those. But that's in Mountain View on Saturday, early afternoon. And then we'll be having a second screening at Cinequest on Tuesday, early afternoon at the same location. A couple weeks after that, we're going to be in Beloit, Wisconsin at the Beloit International Film Festival. So that's exciting. We're looking forward to that. We have the Vero Beach Film Festival, which I just mentioned, which happens toward the end of no, excuse me, toward the middle of April. And then we have this other festival I can't mention in the Northeast that happens at the end of April. And we just received notification yesterday from another festival on the west coast of Florida, big, well-known festival. But I don't know if we're able to publicly mention that because I don't think they've actually made their announcement. So I'm going to hold off on saying who that is. But all of that information, we're going to keep that schedule updated on our website. So folks will be able to go there and see that.
Okay, thank you so much. And where can people find you? And can you repeat one more time for those who want to know where they can find you, the film on social media, and and if do you have any more questions that you wanted, if they had any questions to ask you?
Sure. So again, the film website is dynamite-film.com. Really easy to remember. And there you got everything you need. You've got access to our social pages. You have email address. You can email us. So anything you need, go find right there. If you have any questions, like or follow us on social media. You can ask us questions through there. We'll respond in a timely fashion.
Okay, thank you so much, Lauren. And I love the documentary. It's 96 Pounds of Dynamite opening in film festivals. Is it next week or
This coming, yeah. So this Saturday is our premiere. Is the
okay,
world premiere.
the world premiere on Saturday, March 14th. You can catch them at the Cinequest, 96 Pounds of Dynamite. And Lauren, thank you so much for being on Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez podcast.
Thank you so much, Jordan. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. And this is Jordan Ramirez signing off, saying I'll see you at the movies. And again, Lauren, thank you so much for the documentary. I got to know you, and from the documentary, I got to know Chad, his life story, and everything else that I loved about it. It was great to watch, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care, Jordan.
Okay, bye.